Welcome to the Gordon Drive Viaduct and Bacon Creek Conduit public hearing to discuss the proposed alternative and environmental assessment. Thank you for joining us. If you haven't already, please be sure to sign in at the welcome table and pick up project information. If you would like to speak at the end of this presentation, please sign in at the welcome table. Iowa DOT will have this presentation and the public hearing transcribed. Please save your questions and comments for the end of the presentation. Today we will begin with brief introductions of the panel, then we'll cover an overview of the project. After that, we'll discuss the environmental assessment, potential impacts, and next steps. We will conclude with a Q&A, which is when we will take comments. The purpose of today's public hearing is to present the project and gather public input as part of the National Environmental Policy Act. Today, the project team is looking for feedback on the proposed alternative and its potential impacts as listed in the environmental assessment. We will begin by reviewing the overall project. The project consists of 4 key components: the Gordon Drive Viaduct, Cunningham Drive, Lewis Boulevard, and Bacon Creek Conduit. The Gordon Drive Viaduct is a 3,970-foot-long, 4-lane structure that was originally built in 1936 and is a primary connection between businesses in downtown and the eastern part of Sioux City. The second component is Cunningham Drive, which currently crosses underneath the viaduct, but does not provide access from Gordon Drive to the stockyards. The third component is the Lewis Boulevard Junction, which currently features an interchange at Gordon Drive. Finally, the Bacon Creek Conduit consists of south, center, and north box culverts draining from Ruston Street on the east to Lewis Boulevard on the west. The south box culvert, which was constructed in the early 1900s, is located under Gordon Drive for much of its length. The purpose of the proposed project is to sustain safe vehicular and pedestrian bicyclist mobility on Gordon Drive and to address structural deficiencies associated with the Gordon Drive Viaduct and the Bacon Creek Conduit in Sioux City. The need for the project includes poor structural condition, substandard geometrics and inadequate cross-section, and safety. To address the project's purpose and need, the following improvements have been identified: construction of 2 structurally sound bridges and a shared use path to replace the current 4-lane Gordon Drive Viaduct. Reconstruction of Lewis Boulevard and Cunningham Drive interchanges to be at grade and signalized intersections. Replace the Bacon Creek Conduit between Gordon Drive and Correctionville Road from Lewis Boulevard to Ruston Street. And to improve shared use paths throughout the project area to create more and safer connections for the community. On any project, Iowa DOT has to follow the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. NEPA is a law that requires federal agencies to consider the environmental impacts of their proposed actions before making decisions. The Federal Highway Administration, FHWA, is the designated lead federal agency and has partnered with Iowa DOT and the City of Sioux City for this project action. Under NEPA, FHWA and Iowa DOT must document these impacts and make the information publicly available for comment. Due to the large scope of this project, NEPA will be addressed through an environmental assessment, generally referred to as an EA. The EA examines project benefits and potential impacts on the natural and human environment based on conceptual design. The effects on the natural environment the EA considers are water quality, fish, and wildlife. The human environment effects include noise, historic resources, recreational properties, hazardous materials, and socioeconomics. Socioeconomics includes resources such as community cohesion, environmental justice, economics, right-of-way and relocations, and bicycle and pedestrian accommodations. The EA is available for review and comment at today's hearing or throughout the comment period at the project website and at several locations around the community. To determine the proposed alternative evaluated in the EA, the project began by examining multiple alternatives, including a no-build option. Each alternative was assessed based on a range of criteria including right-of-way, traffic impacts, and costs. The proposed alternative was carried forward for further analysis in the EA because it balances the broader goals of infrastructure improvement while minimizing environmental and community impacts. The new Gordon Drive bridges and 4-lane roadway section would be constructed approximately 10 feet south of the existing viaduct and feature a 14-foot wide shared use path. A new Cunningham Drive connection to Gordon Drive would be constructed between the bridges to provide access to the stockyards. The new bridges would be built prior to the demolition of the existing viaduct to improve traffic maintenance and shorten the estimated construction time. The Lewis Boulevard junction would be reconstructed as an at-grade signalized intersection, similar to other major intersections along Gordon Drive. As a result, Lewis Boulevard would be shifted east and its elevation increased to connect with Gordon Drive. The existing ramp to the Lewis Boulevard and Leach Avenue intersection would be removed to create a standard 4-leg intersection at that location. The existing south and center Bacon Creek conduits would be replaced by a larger concrete box culvert constructed between Gordon Drive and Correctionville Road from Lewis Boulevard to Ruston Street. The proposed box culvert shift would minimize traffic impacts during construction but require right-of-way north of Gordon Drive. The existing north conduit would be replaced by a short segment of box culvert under Lewis Boulevard. The existing south and center conduits would be filled and abandoned in place. Shared use paths will be constructed along the south side of Gordon Drive between Virginia Street and Lewis Boulevard, and on the north side of Gordon Drive between Lewis Boulevard and Ruston Street. Shared use paths will also be constructed along Cunningham Drive and west of Lewis Boulevard. In addition to the new shared use paths, Lewis Boulevard pedestrian underpasses and streamlined connections between existing pedestrian facilities and shared use paths will be provided. Potential impacts due to the proposed alternative, such as historic property and archaeological site impacts, were identified and evaluated in the EA document. Historic properties include buildings, structures, objects, archaeological sites, and districts that are 50 years or older and hold significance based on criteria established in the National Historic Preservation Act. Along the project, there are 8 such historic properties. The proposed alternative would have an adverse effect on the Gordon Drive Viaduct. Through multiple rounds of archaeological investigations, there were 2 sites identified as eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places. A proposed mitigation plan for adverse impacts has been developed. The Iowa DOT will continue consultation with stakeholders including tribes, nations, SHPO, FHWA, Sioux City HPC, and other agencies as appropriate. Impacts to wetlands and streams are anticipated to be minor, and threatened and endangered species impacts are not anticipated with this project. A preliminary noise study did not identify any elevated noise levels that would meet the requirements for noise abatement. Short-term impacts from construction noise, dust, access, and transit would be minimal to environmental justice communities. The expected benefits of this project will include overall improvement to the transportation system, as well as improved accessibility and safety for non-motorized users. The project would also adhere to federal, state, and local floodplain regulations, and it is expected that an overall reduction of the existing 100-year floodplain would occur. The existing Floyd River levee system would not be affected by the proposed alternative and would continue to function as intended. The proposed project would require the acquisition of additional property rights and relocations. If your property is impacted by this project, continued coordination with a representative from the Iowa DOT would occur. Proposed Gordon Drive would be constructed south of the existing viaduct with the desire to maintain two-lane, two-way traffic on the existing viaduct during construction. However, this will be contingent on future inspections. There is potential for temporary traffic delays, short-term road closures, temporary lane closures, and temporary detours during construction. Following this public hearing, Iowa DOT will review and consider comments from the public. The DOT has programmed $20.6 million for right-of-way in 2027. The total project costs are estimated at $197.1 million. This amount was figured using 2025 construction costs. The funding for this project will be a combination of federal, state, and local sources. 3 public meetings were held prior to drafting the environmental assessment, which is the reason for today's public hearing. Many activities still need to occur before construction could start, including preliminary design, completion of the final environmental assessment, final design, right-of-way acquisition, and construction lettings. The project is anticipated to begin construction as soon as 2027. This project schedule is based on several assumptions and is subject to change based on the availability of funds and agency approvals. As stated earlier, physical copies of the EA are available for review at the locations listed on the screen. For those without internet access, information may be obtained at Iowa DOT District 3 offices. Comments will be collected through March 10th, 2025. Now for the Q&A. The project team is looking for feedback on the impacts of the proposed alternative and the EA. We will consider every comment before moving forward with this project. Tonight, our panel is here to listen to your comments and concerns and answer your questions. Your comments during the Q&A will be recorded. A few instructions before we get started. Please wait for our staff to call on you. We'll begin with those who signed up. The microphone will be brought to you. Please state your name and spell it, and then state your address. You will have 3 minutes to ask a question or make a statement. Once we've run through that list, we'll open it up to the room. If you have additional comments after the Q&A ends, you can always provide them in writing to a staff member at the welcome table or speak to another project team member in the room. Thank you. Your comments will be collected through March 10th, 2025. You can submit your comments to Sarah Tracy at the contact listed on the screen, or you can submit your comments online at the location identified on the screen.